bids are in. The gavel has dropped. Ladies and gentlemen, here at WineBid, we are finally hammered. This is WineBid's podcast about all things wine value, buying, selling wine, and what's a good value, what's not. As always, I am Jeff McGurn. I work on our WineBid marketing team. And with me, of course, as he is every episode, well, nearly every episode, Paul Walker, our wine auction expert, and as I always say, I would argue our wine expert extraordinaire. Paul has forgotten more about wine than I will ever know. I know very little in comparison to him or most.
That I can probably agree with, but
yeah, no, that is true. That is 100%
sure.
100% true.
Were you on his podcast all by yourself when I was missing? And you said almost every one of them.
Nobody wants to see me by myself.
But you said I was on almost every one. I was like, wait, what was I? Was Jeff just like talking about all his picks?
I'm looking into the future when maybe we're able. So here's what happened. Paul wasn't here for like a couple of weeks, and like we tried to get.
One day was a holiday.
I was here both times. My point stands. I was here, you were not, and I literally.
I haven't seen the Jeff McGurn show. Finally.
Well, it was literally me just sitting here not saying anything. Because here's the thing: we tried to get other people to join me on the podcast, but they wouldn't do it because nobody really likes me.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So we're like,
I disagree with that. That's nonsense. I disagree with them. So
we were like, hey, do you want to do our podcast? Because Paul's out, and people were like, yes, and be like, it's with Jeff, and like, I'm busy that day. I have to wash my hair, right? And so we just.
I don't believe you. All right, well, let's get into it.
Right now, okay. This episode, we're diving into American wines, U.S. wines. So I want to go straight into it. We've got a bottle of 2013 Scarecrow Cabernet Sauvignon.
Okay, I was wondering what you were going to first mention. I wonder if it was going to be Opus or if it was going to be Insignia. Well, Scarecrow. Okay.
Here's why I'm mentioning the Scarecrow. Right. First of all, I know this is a favorite producer of yours. We've got three of these.
Hey, it's good wine.
They're already bid on.
There's a whole bunch of Scarecrow.
A whole bunch of Scarecrow coming to auction. It's a solid year in Napa. This was the 13.
Oh, 13. Yeah, 13. Yeah.
It's less than the 07, right?
Yeah, the pricing for this is always interesting to me because you would expect something with more time on it from a phenomenal vintage would be, would be higher than a more recent vintage, but it's probably score driven. That's my guess.
I wanted to get your thoughts on that one. We have an 07 Joseph Phelps Insignia mag, right? Well, we have two of them actually, 520. I think it's cool to see the Insignia mags. We also have a 3-liter. 07 is a solid year. I was curious to get your thoughts on 520 for an 07 Insignia mag.
I don't know. I haven't tasted too many of the 2000s Insignias in recent years. I've had some of the like 01, 02, and some of those are really, really good. I haven't tried 07. 520 for a mag, it seems kind of steep. It's funny because the 3-liter is cheaper than two of the mags put together. It's at $9.95. So there's the deal, right?
It's a step. That's what you make your sangria out of, right? And by the way, 2013 Dominus Estate, right?
Oh yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the Dominus because there's quite a bit of Dominus in this week.
A lot of it.
I don't generally, like to mention the same wine all the time, but I did see there's multiple vintages. The 13, of course, is, pushed way out into the stratosphere at 510 because of the scores, but it is
bottle.
It's really good wine. I taste this wine every year at various events in Napa, and I wish I had more of it.
I love how but you just casually. I taste this wine every year.
If you work in Napa long enough, you're going to taste these wines on a regular basis. Now, I don't have verticals of 6-packs in my cellar like Jeff does, but I do drink. A fair amount of this, or I should say I taste these wines fairly often, but the 13, it's awesome. It's far and away the most expensive vintage, I think, unless you go, I think, back to the 91 or something. Yeah, no, that was cool. There's like 11 and 12 and 14. And
there's a ton of Dominus coming to auction.
Yeah, there's a bunch of it.
Let's travel to the 90s. Getting our time machine. 1996 Schaefer Vineyards Hillside Select Cab.
Yeah.
This one already has a bid on it, $215. I thought this is a really cool bottle. I know you're not a fan of Schaefer because they're incorporated.
Wrong. No, incorrect. Actually,
I like Schaefer.
Who were they? They were just bought by was it a Korean company or a family? I think. I could be wrong, but I think so. But no, the older vintages of Schaefer are awesome. The older Hillside, I mean, 78 is one of the wines that's like one of the best wines made in California. And I think I've always wanted to have 74. I've never had it. It's before they called it Hillside, but no, the older, the 90s, the 80s and 90s Hillsides are awesome. I would, you're right. 96 at 215. That's about as cheap as it's funny. Here's another example where it doesn't make any sense, because if you look at all the Hillside in the auction, there's 2,000 for 240. And 96 was a much better vintage than 2000. So
that's exactly what I was saying. I was looking at that, scratching my head going like, 96 for 215, like, God, that just seems like such a good deal for Hillside Select.
Yeah.
It's got good age.
Great.
It's probably drinking great right now.
Yeah, so get that bottle and bring it up to now. Now I will say I have had the O2 for, I want to say I would call the 2000 vintages young, but now that's already 21 years old. But the O2 is very good. I would say it's more of a modern, let's just call it a more modern styled version of Schaefer Hillside, but it's very, very good. And so I'd get that 96. Get that, Jeff, and bring it up to Napa.
Says the guy who's like, I've tasted everything in the world 25 times.
No,
like, you don't need another.
No, I never made that claim. I just said that I make a point to try Dominus as much as possible because it's so good. My God.
Like,
I don't have any of it.
No joke. I'll literally be like, oh my God, Petrus 82. What would it be like to taste that? Oh, I tasted it back in 96, 97, 2000, 01, 07. And I'm like, I wonder what the other vineyards in Palmar were like. Oh, well, Le Pen was like this, and Vieux-Château-Certain was like this. You're like, this guy's tasted everything. Speaking of years with a 6 on the end of them, 1986 Ridge Montebello for $360.
We were talking about finding Ridge Montebello for less than 200 last week. So good luck with that on the older vintages. It's not going to happen.
You cannot. I mean, look, this one has strong tasting notes. It's got a good amount of age. There's some really cool, Ridge coming into auction this week.
Yeah, there's young stuff too, right? There's like 07, I think there's 07 for 190. So there's an example for sub 200 Montebello. I can't believe we're calling sub $200 wine a deal, but that when you talk about Montebello, there it is. 08 is at 205. Let's see. Sorry, these are not all new this week, but anyway, that's that's just the way it is. The 86 that should be pretty amazing.
While we're in the 80s, 1983 Robert Mondavi Botrytis Sauvignon Blanc. This one for $40. I thought this one was really cool because there's a lot of other Mondavi coming into auction.
There's a whole bunch of it. Color looks a little dark, but yeah.
It's got botrytis, right? So
it's got a lot.
It's got a lot of botrytis. In theory, this is one of those where this is a 40-year-old bottle. So this is one that could be a fantastic birth year. As a sweet wine, this could very well be in fantastic shape. And I'll say I have had a lot of long-aged sweet wines that have the very dark color, and they're fantastic.
Yeah.
There's with no signs of oxidization.
That's true.
The ones I have had. I'm not saying that's this, but I'm just throwing that out there.
Sure. No, the late harvest wines tend to last really well. And I think that'll be a fun example. And you're right. For a birth year, it's not expensive. It'd be a fun gift to give somebody who's turning 40. So we've
got a 1999 Heights Cabernet Sauvignon for $75. Love me some Heights, 24 years of age. This one could still be kicking. It's got a good fill level, and we've got a good amount of Heights coming into.
Oh yeah, no, Heights last forever.
Heights last forever. I have a bunch of Heights in my cellar. And again, for $75, this just seems like a phenomenal deal to me. Granted, It's not like Martha's Vineyard, but you're looking at something that retail would go for 50 or up. And I think you've got the age on it, and it looks looking good.
Yeah, it's a tannic vintage in Napa for sure. So there's no worries that's going to be, going to be still alive. But if the fruit sort of balances out with the tannins, it'll be pretty tasty. But no, that's in great shape. That's a fun bottle.
Let's stick around some of these older vintages. 1978 Silver Oak, Alexander Valley Cabernet Sauvignon. This one already has a bid on them. We got 4 of them. $210, 45 years of age, and it's still kicking, right? Great fill level. And there's a bunch of Silver Oak coming into auction this week.
Yeah, it's fun to see. 78's probably, I think, next to, who knows, but next to 74 is probably the best vintage in the 70s and California. And these 78, these things look great. So that's a fun choice for sure. I don't know if you saw too, for something that's a little bit more reasonable, not quite as old, but there's 7 bottles of 84 Burgess at 80. These older Burgess wines have been getting more and more attention just because obviously the winery sold and then actually subsequently, I think, burned down. But the Cabernets from back in the 80s were quite good and kind of under the radar for a long time. But that was one of the earlier vintages in this week, at least from Napa, that kind of stuck out to me. If you don't mind, I'll continue with
Go for it.
A couple of our classic producers that we talk about a lot, but there's some Diamond Creek that stuck out to me because it's in the sub 200 club.
You're talking about the 2013.
The 13 Red Rock. Yeah, 13.
I have that on my list as well. I was like,
and 15 Red Rock Terrace also, like both at 175, which for that's far and away cheaper than it costs on release. Yes. I think even back then, I think the 13 was like over $200 from the winery.
Yeah, I literally did a cartoon like, and then like my eyes went like this.
Yeah,
like 175 is like nothing. I mean, it already has a bid on it.
Yeah, the 15 Volcanic Hills at 155. So those I just flagged because I said, hey, look, it's Diamond Creek for less than you're ever going to see it most of the time. So that was kind of fun. And then we mentioned the Dominus, of course, but there was a bottle. I don't know if you noticed, we skipped over Joseph Phelps, but there's a 77 straight Napa Cabernet from Phelps at 135 that stuck out to me. That looks pretty interesting as well. So for classic producers, I think that was about it from California for me. I've got some more modern stuff to mention.
I have some additional classic producers. Okay. There was a 77 BV Georgia State Latour Private Reserve for 130. I thought that one was cool. And the most recent tasting notes say that it's still kicking. And there's a lot of Georgia State Latour coming into auction this week. There was a 78 Chateau Saint-Jean individual bench selected late harvest Belle Terrace vineyard.
Here you go with another one of your late harvest.
Another one of my late harvest Rieslings.
Hey, they both have bids. So you're too late.
They both have bids. Yeah, they look so cool.
Late harvest Jeff is late to the bidding.
An 84 Raymond Private Reserve Cabernet Sauvignon for $50. This one again.
Yeah, that's not bad.
That's not bad. That's a fantastic deal. You want to talk about marquee, and I know this is a favorite producer. This is, I think, maybe your favorite producer. I think you're in their wine club. You get a lot of their wine, but a 2010 Castello de Amorosa late harvest conversion.
No,
this is your favorite winery, right?
I think you mentioned retail, but I think you're very incorrect there. I think that this winery specifically does not sell in any retailer. I think that was their whole thing.
It's only wine clubs.
Winery Direct. Yeah, Winery Direct. So I've never actually, I don't think I've ever had it.
I love like you've had everything. He just the other day, folks, Paul was telling me how he tastes all of the Castello de Amorosa wines every single year. He's a huge fan. So a whole cellar. Those were sort of the big ones. If we can go into like newer stuff in Napa, there were a couple that I did want to mention because I know you're probably going to mention them and I wanted to beat you to the punch. Okay. Can I beat you to the punch? 2016 McDonald Cabernet Sauvignon. There were actually a bunch of McDonald cabs that came into auction. I only mention this because, so first of all, $700 already has a bid.
Yeah.
Right. Incredibly sought after. And the fact that they're McDonald's, I'm a Matt Gurn, you would think that I would get a fast pass to their allocation.
No, you won't.
Well, it makes sense. We're Scottish brethren. We're practically related. Right? And yet somehow I have to wait on the waiting list like everybody else. Right? And it makes no sense to me. And then a 2010, tell me if I'm saying this correctly, a 2010 Oshag Hennessy, Hell Mountain Cabernet Sauvignon for $95.
No, it's funny. I was gonna mention the O'Shaughnessy wines because suddenly there's like a flurry of them.
Hennessy. Oshag Hennessy. Are you not a Key and Peele fan? Anyway.
I've been exposed to very little of it, but I have seen. It's very funny, the stuff that I have seen.
Anyway, sorry, go on.
No. The interesting thing about O'Shaughnessy is that they have multiple properties, right? They have like a whole big parcel up on Howell Mountain, and then they have a vineyard over on Mount Veeder, and which is pretty wild. They have some amazing pieces of property, and then they have a spot on Oakville Crossroad, and they make Chardonnay from Oakville, which is really, really cool. We don't have any of it right now, but I've always been into these wines, and I like what they do. I think they're underpriced at auction. But we've got a bunch of it. There's 18, 14, 13, 10. Yeah, it's cool.
I'll mention one more. 2010 Chapelet Pritchard Hill for $150.
How many weeks have we gone by without you mentioning Chapelet?
We mentioned every week.
The least 3 weeks you didn't mention Chapelet. Did you? I don't know. You probably did.
Allocation, it's $265, and this is $150. It's got 13 years of age on it. That is a ridiculous deal as far as I'm concerned. Like, I want to buy this now.
Well, then get it.
Crazy good price.
Yeah, well, then get it.
Well, I'm trying to gift it to the three people that listen to our podcast, one of which is our head of development, Marty. And he only
is he bugging you for some Chapelet?
No, I'm just saying I know he listens to our podcast because he mentions it, because he listens it to see if we've mentioned any of the wineries that he loves, any of the producers he loves. And
generally we do not, because he loves, and actually I keep those wines secret because there's so many good deals in the Northwest that I don't talk about any of them. You're not wrong. I saw a bottle of one of my favorite Washington Syrahs is in auction this week, and I'm not going to talk about it because it's very inexpensive and it's very good. So
you heard it here first, folks. Look for Washington Syrahs that came into auction this week. Bid on all of them.
I'll tell you, it's not a producer that you're familiar with. I would say most people are not familiar with it. It's not sold in retail in California. At least I've never found it here, but
I will find it. Did you notice the 2016 Isley Vineyard Cabernet Sauvignon?
Oh, no. Is that new this week?
It's new this week. 360 killer bottle. Great.
Yeah. I think I want to say that's like about what it costs from the winery, since the Chateau Latour, owns Isley now.
Well, I'll tell you what, at retail, this bottle's going for like well over $500.
Oof, that's a lot.
What do you have?
All right, so let me burn through, because I think we're going on.
We're coming up to time. Here. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll be fast, but more modern, more interesting things happening here. There is a 06 Bond Vicina Magnum. You don't see Bond in Magnums in auction that often, so that stuck out to me. It's at $660, that's Bond pricing. It's not cheap, but it's 06. There's a good amount on it. Large format. You don't see those very often.
Decent amount of Bond coming at auction this week.
Yeah, there's a few. I think there's like one of the 4-packs of the 09 or something. Anyway, there's a mini vertical, sort of broken vertical, if you will, of the Checkerboard Vineyard, which is pretty hard to find, mailing list only type stuff. Beautiful, stunning property way up on the mountain. I think it's like just south of Calistoga, north of St. Helena somewhere. Anyway, there's 07 at $275, 09 at $165, and 2010 at $190. I'm pretty sure on the mailing list it's quite a bit more. There's a Magnum of one of our favorites we talk about a lot, 14 Continuum Magnum at 330, which I thought was a steal. A couple things that stuck out that I don't know that I want to research, but these always kind of stick out to me because they're names I've never heard of. 2017 Depiction Cabernet at 135. I'm going to look that up because I've never heard of it. Going to a non-cab variety, excuse me. There's a 2017 Downstream Zinfandel Magnum for $360. I don't recall ever seeing Zinfandel for anywhere near that kind of a price. So I have to find out more about Downstream because there's a mag at 360. So that's maybe not necessarily a deal, but interesting. There are some wines by the famous Bob Egelhoff. It's a real character. He's made wines for quite a few different people in the Valley, but his own label, there's a 2010 at 45, 12 at 45, and let's see, the 14 Walton Cabernet at 40. 6 of those. And then even the tawny port that he makes, there's a couple bottles of that at 20. So that stuck out to me. There's also a joint venture between Bob Egelhoff and Two Hands Wines. And Jeff, you'd mentioned a Two Hands wine like a couple months ago that you saw on the site. I can't remember. It was one of their Shirazes. But anyway, I thought this was kind of cool. It was a Two Hands and Egelhoff collaboration, 09 Magnum for $250.
I love Two Hands. I've had a lot of Two Hands. It's just fantastic.
I've never seen this before, so I thought that was really interesting. And Bob Egelhoff, I've met him a few times. He's a total riot. He's an absolute character. He's a great musician too. There's also a bunch of Futo in this week. So I saw there's like almost a little vertical there. There's 04, 05, 07, 10.
Yeah, 12, there was a lot of Futo coming in this week. I noticed that.
There's also a Magnum of the Helianthus, which is a second label that they make, and it's not as expensive as the as the flagship. So the mag of 13 is 160, and I don't think they made that wine again. So that's kind of a cool one-off Magnum. It's only sold a few times. Let's see. There's a bottle of 17 Greer Cabernet, which you don't see very often as well. 6 of those at 155, which I think is well below the mailing list cost. Another producer I've never heard of, Loveland Lee Cabernet, 2018. One of those for 110. You mentioned the McDonald's, of course. There's a Meteor Pear Seed Cabernet Sauvignon, 2 of those at 96. So those have bids. Meteor is another tiny production Cabernet in Napa. Hardly ever see it. Wanted to bring up a couple of Santa Cruz Mountains examples. There's a Mount Eden Cab 2010 at 81. It's got a bid. And then there's Estate Chardonnay, which is phenomenal. I love that stuff. 2013 Mount Eden Estate Chard 41. That's got a bid. There's a bunch of Outpost wines in this week. And again, kind of a mini vertical of the True Vineyard Cab. There's 07, 08, 11, 13, and 14, all sort of in the, 1 to 265 range, it looks like. There's a bunch of Ovid. Shout out to Austin. It's a good buddy of mine. Great stuff. 09, 10, 11, 15. And then there's the 17, 16 different experiment wines with their complicated monikers. Not sure what they mean, but anyway, they're available. There's a Hexameter 09 from Ovid. And then there's a bottle of the 14 Syrah at $90, which is, I think, less than any other wine they make. Also wanted to mention real quick, there's some PAX, quite a few different PAX wines available. I mentioned the Armagh Syrah, the Castelli Night Ranch, Griffin's Lair. There's 12, 13, 15 of that. There's 12 James Berry Vineyard. And then there's the Sonoma Hillside Syrah, which is kind of their big deal wine these days because it's gotten some big scores. But the price discrepancy on the Hillsides is really wild. The 16 is at 125 and the 17 is at 40. So, you might want to try those side by side. The 18 also is at 46. So that's, got some bids, but very, very much, I think it's purely because of the score, but that's a major price difference. And then switching over to Sonoma Coast real quick, our famous Thomas Brown, his label Rivers Marie. There is some of the Old Vines Pinot Noir, which is really, really good. There's some 2010, which has been around for a while at 130. in the sense that, it's got some time on it. 2012, 2016, 2017, all the old vines Pinot, which is great. Another producer I'd never heard of before, Shattercane Cabernet Sauvignon, 2018. There's a bottle of that for $80. And then for very interesting sparkling wine that has a great following, the Ultramarine. There's Ultramarine 18 Heights Blanc de Blanc. There's 12 Blanc de Noir, 14 Pinot Noir, and then there is 18 Rosé, and then looks like the Michael Mara Blanc de Blanc 18, and all those prices are relatively high. It looks like they start at about 165 and go up from there. So those were my domestic picks.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap on our episode for the U.S. domestic wine coming to auction this week on WineBid. So to everyone out there, happy bidding.
Cheers.